We've talked about it quite a few times already, but Luz Noseda's journey as a sorceress is destined to stand out from the biomagic slinging witches that inhabit the Boiling Isles. As Luz prepares to face off against Emperor Belos' forces, with the mysterious Day of Unity nearing closer, it's reasonable to assume she'll need to be better prepared for future encounters with Belos' lackeys and an inevitable rematch with the man himself. Now that Luz has made herself known, mopped the floor with the run-of-the-mill guards, and has Lilith on her side, the Emperor's Coven is going to be rolling out the big guns against our heroes. Luz needs to be able to protect herself and help defend the Owl House from trouble, and in order to do that, she's gonna need to strap up. The main piece of equipment Luz needs for these endeavors is, as we touched on before, a witch's staff. A big crutch in the first fight with the Emperor was the fact that Luz in her current state had no time to think, only act. We saw a severe lack of strategy in Luz's responses during this brief battle, throwing random glyphs at Belos' various monsters and attacks just to get away from them, though she was able to think quick on her feet and get a good stab in the eye. However, thanks to Ida's staff, Luz was able to remotely detonate the portal to Earth and create a little flight delay in Belos' vacation plans. That moment proved to us that a staff would be a total game changer for how Luz produces magic. And while I originally assumed Season 2 would see Luz forge her own Palisman and thus obtain a staff, I'm no longer convinced that's the case. The more I think about the series development art, Dana's Reddit AMA full of Season 2 hints, and further reflection upon Emperor Belos' own staff, the more I'm leaning towards Luz's staff looking different from any that we've seen before. Let's lay everything out on the table on what we know, and draw a new conclusion on how Luz can kick some ass later in the show. Spoiler warning for any Season 2 information discussed that you may be currently unaware of. And if you're down for content on cartoons old and new, please be sure to hit that subscribe button and bell. Remember when Homeworld was surveilling Earth to capture the crystal gems? You know what would have really helped him to stay underground, beyond laser light cannons and tears? ExpressVPN, the sponsor of today's video. Yay! Are you clapping? Yeah, they're clapping. Privacy and the internet doesn't really go hand in hand these days. Thankfully, through ExpressVPN, your internet connection is rerouted through a secure, encrypted server, so you can surf the internet anonymously without anyone looking over your shoulder. You think incognito mode is keeping you safe? Nah, fam. Every single site you visit is still tracked by your internet providers, and said providers can even sell that data to ad companies. ExpressVPN is super easy. All it takes is a literal press of a button, and can be accessed on your computer, tablet, or smartphone. It's no secret we've been inside a lot this year. And if you're looking for something new, a big thing to love about ExpressVPN is that it gives you way more shows and movies on streaming, as you can access catalogs from all across the world. Case in point, if I change my VPN location to the UK, I can go on Netflix and watch JG Quintel's new show, Close Enough. Good alternative to watch the show. Even with YouTube, sometimes videos are region locked, and ExpressVPN allows me to fix that in seconds. ExpressVPN is the fastest VPN on the market, with glowing reviews, 24/7 customer service, and easy access. You can truly access it anywhere, and you can get 3 months free with a 12-month plan only by clicking the link in the description, expressvpn.com/roundtable. Again, this free 3 months is in addition to a 12-month plan at expressvpn.com/roundtable. Take back your internet privacy today. So let's revisit Emperor Belos' own unique staff, featured in the final 2 episodes of Season 1. Thinking about this bad boy is what brought me to this revised theory in the first place. Unlike Ida and Lilith's staffs, it's clearly technology. It appears that it can be broken down into about 3 or so pieces. He's able to keep it in compact size, there's a red plasma ball instead of a palisman, you can even spot a little wire. Belos as a whole seems to have a reliance on technology that harvests magic. And interesting enough, I believe we've only had one other instance so far of red technological magic that's similar to Belos' power. Hexside security system in I Was a Teenage Abomination, which created force field-like doors that restricted Luz and Willow's ability to travel. There's a clear connection between this system and Belos' own telekinesis, but that's not the point of this particular discussion. Belos knows how to take various concepts of magic to repurpose and streamline them for his own gain, particularly magic that isn't necessarily native to the witches on the Isles. That alone opens the gate to draw parallels between Luz and the Emperor, which is almost almost definitely intentional, as one's the main protagonist and one's the main antagonist. There's always parallels drawn. Both of them seem to be these fish out of water that suddenly appear in this strange new world, forming connections, learning unorthodox ways to practice magic, gaining influence. And they even have unique connections to the Titan. If you think about it, Luz's legacy is shaping up to be the honest, heroic version of Belos's. And the two having their own unique staffs by the time we reach a final showdown, it would be poetry. If Belos can have a staff that differs from the rest of the Isles, Luz can too. I'm sure the more we learn about Belos, and the more the characters learn about him, the narrative will hit a point where Luz and the others realize, oh my god, his staff is tech. And they could try to study it from there. Hell, if anyone, Lilith may already have some valuable intel. I'm sure what she already knows about Belos will be crucial information in Season 2. But why wouldn't Luz be able to have a normal staff, complete with a Palisman? What if she simply misses out on her chance to get one? Let's jump back to that Dana Terrace AMA I've cited at least 100 times in other videos already. A Palisman is our world's equivalent of a witch's familiar. They act as familiars and double as magical staffs that house their own source of power outside of a witch's bile sac. They're not all powerful, but they can do some cool stuff. Typically, a witch will carve their Palisman from a special type of wood in their teens. This can either be done at school or with parental supervision. That is, if that precious resource is still around. When I first heard this, I believed that we would see Luz go on an adventure with Ida or some sort of Hexside field trip that would result in her carving a Palisman. But now, I'm starting to think that the whole "if that precious resource still around" bit alludes to the idea that although this is how Palismen are traditionally made, it won't be the path Luz takes to obtain her own. Perhaps other schools have snatched up the special wood needed, as we haven't gotten a good look at other schools, but they were mentioned in the first day. That'd be a cool way to introduce them.
Ha! Take that, Glandis! Looks like this year's grudge match is going to be a forfeit.
But considering making sacrifices seems to be a huge theme of the Owl House, some ways more literal than others, I think Luz will give up her chance to have a Palisman and Witch's Staff by extension. If there's a limited quantity of this wood, and Hexside's one of the only few locations to get a Palisman carved, I can easily envision an episode where all of the main Hexside gang are excited at the prospect of getting a staff, but because of special wood inventory, someone's going to end up being left out. Ultimately, Luz will end up passing on the opportunity after some competition and conflict, deciding that if she's able to figure out how to be a witch without magic bile, she can make it work without a traditional staff, setting the stage for her own custom-made tech staff down the road. But why am I so adamant on Luz relying on technology for her staff? Why does she need a staff at all? Well, again, this comes back to her original weapon during development. The beta design for Luz no Seda is definitely a departure from the look we've ended up with. White and purple striped shirt, a green jacket, substantially longer hair, and a dark orange beanie. But by far, the biggest change is that Luz was going to be equipped with nothing other than a baseball bat. Yeah, Luz was going to be out here busting kneecaps. Last month, Dana shared new art featuring the beta designs of Luz, Willow, and Amity. Something that stands out is that Luz's baseball is coated in glyphs. Now, I could have missed it, but I couldn't find any production art that had the glyphs on the bat. Although there is a piece of art where Luz is wearing a skull as a mask, just like Belos. Parallels! So while there is a possibility that the backglyphs were a newer addition from Dana, let's run to the possibility that she actually had this plan since the early days of development. Makes sense, given that glyphs are such a big part of the series. Ida's staff probably would have coexisted with this concept. If there's one thing about animation, especially overarching series like the Owl House, it's that the showrunners have to keep some ideas in the back pocket for a long time before they actually get the chance to put it into the story proper. Examples include Amphibia, how Disney wanted Matt Brawley to stray away from the magical elements of the world during season 1, so he and his team decided to save them for later. We're still edging towards later, as magic and other grand concepts are still working their way into the insanity of the second season. Another instance is with Steven Universe, and the concept of the perfect Steven transformation that existed since season 1, but wasn't realized in the franchise until it was retooled in Steven Universe Future, as Steven's toxicity and stress manifested into a diamond-like state. When you have a good idea, one that you really like, you make it work, no matter the waiting game or little tweaks here and there. So how could Luz's backglyph find new life in the Owl House animated series? Well, let me contribute an idea. In a scenario where Luz is unable to carve a palisman and staff of her own, she would have to seek out an alternative, a technological staff that's similar to Belos's. But instead of simulating force fields, telekinesis, and methods of torture, this staff is all about the glyphs. Although there are 9 main covens and forms of magic, considering Luz's glyphs seem to account for elements like fire, ice, and lightning, I wouldn't be surprised if she learns an upwards of 12 individual spells. Now imagine a staff that has a dial or even a D-pad of sorts that Luz can adjust and select to different positions, almost like a clock. If she sets it to 12 o'clock, the staff can unleash fire glyphs, 3 o'clock is ice glyphs, 6 is lightning, 9 is plants, and so on. They can almost be treated like Spider-Man's web shooters, functionality-wise. Much like how Peter has to make canisters of web fluid and insert them into his shooters, maybe Luz has to illustrate a ton of glyphs beforehand and insert them into a slot of her staff. And instead of where a palisman would be, she could have an orb like Belos's, but it instead generates magic from an activated glyph, focusing and boosting the power into a much stronger spell. Or maybe instead of an orb, Luz has a fake palisman that fires these spells from its mouth. The sky is the limit, people. Either way, I think between creating additional parallels between Luz and Belos, giving Luz a better way of utilizing her spells on the fly, and having better odds of staying out of harm's way, and giving Luz a distinct, her own route to a true witch's status, a tech-based, glyph-utilizing witch's staff may be the next major upgrade she obtains. But who knows? Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe she gets a normal staff and palisman. Maybe she gets no staff at all. As always, only time will tell. But definitely let us know what you think. Drop those thoughts down below, or tag us in your thoughts at Roundtable Vids on Twitter and Instagram. And you can find me over at AllStrickVox. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit those like and subscribe buttons. Shout out to our amazing patrons who are keeping us going. And we hope you all have a wonderful day. Alright, see ya!